So in today's video, we're going to take a look at the chordal work of one of my favorite guitarists of all time, the wonderful, the incredible Bill Frisell. And we're going to look at a couple different examples on a couple different strings on how you can apply this concept to your own playing and how you can achieve some of those beautiful cloud-like chords that our friend Bill plays. So I've been a fan of Bill's music probably ever since I first heard him, and like many guitarists, I instantly kind of fell under his spell and the beautiful sounds that he manages to conjure. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about them because he's kind of like a Zen master of never overplaying, always playing what the music needs. And he also has a really unique kind of approach to playing harmony on the guitar that he's talked about kind of distilling from Thelonious Monk, where he thought of almost a reductionist approach to how he plays his chords. So rather than what a lot of guitarists try to do, where we try to cram in as many notes as possible to make up for the fact that we aren't a piano, Bill's kind of found a really interesting way of using less notes, but choosing them very carefully so that they can convey particular colors and emotions. It's almost like impressionist painting in sound. But so the example that we're going to explore today is using the interval of either a minor or a major second in our voicings. Now, the cool thing about doing this is that you get this really close sound. A minor second, for example, would be, say, the distance between the notes D and E flat. These are really, really close intervals. And they sound quite dissonant when they're just played themselves like this, because my notes are, the two of them right next to each other, our ear doesn't like to necessarily make up the distance between those notes. It just kind of rubs. But this can have a really beautiful application when, say, if we think of D, so I'm playing D on my 12th fret of my D string there, E flat on the 8th fret of my G string. If we add, say, the note G on top here, we can express this really cool voicing of a C minor 9, or C minor add 9 technically, because there's no 7 in here. And the beauty of this sound is that this can exist both over a tonic minor or as, say, like a 2 chord in a 2-5-1. But let's take another look at that really quick. So I have 12, 8, 8 in my hand. And again, I'm starting kind of high up the neck because this is a bit of a reach if we were to do it, down here for, say, an F minor. But this beautiful chord can express, it's a really, really strong color. And it, to me, is maybe a little bit more interesting, actually, than if I were to play this very common C minor 9 voicing, where this is root 3rd, flat 7th, and 9th. This is obviously a great chord. I play it all the time in my 2-5s and whatever, but this kind of elicits a very particular emotion, this minor 9. And the reason it's so strong is because we have this minor second interval right there. So we get, that's an example over C, and obviously a good way to find this voicing is by either finding a root position minor triad. So this, for example, is in the key of G minor. I have G, B flat, and D, or 5, 3, 3. And then we just push the bottom note up by a whole step, and we end up with the 9th added into our voicings. So this is one in particular that I really love the sound of. And then whenever I do these voicings, I always want to see if I can fit them onto different strings. So taking this, for example, this C minor 9, let's see if I can achieve a similar effect on my next set of strings, which would be the G, B, and E strings. So I'm going a little higher on the guitar's range. If I were to do that, I can see I grab D here, I can get an E flat here, and I can get G there. Now this one tends to be a little bit less comfortable to grab, just because here it still spans 5 frets, but I don't get a bar at the top of it. So this is a wonderful place to play that same voicing. And I'm on 7, 4, 3. So that's another minor 9. Now if I were to expand one string set lower, I'm actually going to move to a different key just because for C I'm going to run out of frets. And this one is a really big reach on these low strings. I'd recommend keeping it on those top 3 sets just because it is a little bit easier and more manageable to grab there. But let's say, for example, if I was playing a root position G minor here on my A, D, G strings, if I do a really big reach, I can get that same chord voicing here. Now this one, again, this set of strings, it's a really beautiful sound. I especially like that we're in kind of the lower register of the guitar, so we get a little bit more bass out of these strings. But this is not a chord that I would grab quickly. It's kind of a chord where if I have a second to think about it, I might throw this in. But otherwise, I'd be much more likely to grab this voicing here on this set of strings where it's less of a reach. So that's 12, 8, 7, and again, I have really big hands, and this is even a stretch for me. So if that gives you trouble, don't worry about it. Maybe only play that on the top two sets of strings. But the great thing about this interval of the minors, or the second in general, this was in a minor example, so it's going to be a minor second between the minor third and the ninth. But we can do that same thing and apply it to all of our major chord shapes. So let's say, for example, in that same key, so let's say now I'm trying to fill in C major. Here was my C minor 9 voicing with 12, 8, 8. I can get a similar kind of cool close interval rub happening if I raise my third from E flat on the 8th fret to E natural on my 9th, and that would sound like this. I still get these two being so close gives it that particular kind of color. And then again, adding that fifth on top, so I have D, E, and G, or 9, 3, 5. This is a beautiful voicing that works great. It also works well on the next set of strings. We get this. And then if we wanted to, let's go back to the key of G for this. I actually find this is an easier to reach on these bottom sets of strings as well. So here for G major add 9, I have 12, 9, 7. Again, it is a big reach. If it's uncomfortable for you, that's okay. This isn't necessarily the first chord I'd grab in this kind of color, but it's a good one. You could also do this, say this would be D major add 9 with the same voicing, but now I'm on 12, 9, 7 of my E, A, and D strings. Now another cool sound that we can explore is taking that interval of a second and putting it at the top of our chord rather than nestled in at the bottom of the chord. This is going to bring in a string gap to our chords, just because grabbing them on 3 adjacent strings is a disgusting reach to even try to do. But for example, let's say I was playing C here on my 10th fret of the D string, and this particular one isn't necessarily the nicest reach either, but it is achievable, especially higher up the neck. But so what I'm going to do here is I want C, and now I'm going to put my 9th in as the 9th, as an octave above, and then I get the major third on top of it, and we get this. Which is a really, really nice sound. I keep grabbing my A string there. So that's one way to do it. The other great way that you can achieve this is by going, you could trade out your root, so that was C, D, and E, and I get this. You can also achieve a similar effect if, rather than having our root in the chord, if we wanted to go rootless. Another great way to play this guy would be to play G on my 5th fret of the D string there. I can grab 7, which on the G string, which is going to be my 9, D, and I can grab E there. So this is the same selection of notes, just in a different order. That to me is a really beautiful sound. Again, the big difference between whether you have the root or the 5th in there with it is how wide you want the interval spread to be. This is a very interesting sound, and then this is a similar sound in terms of the content of the notes, but it's arranged in a little bit more reasonable of a range. Now this same, let's do the same thing. So this I had C, D, and E. If I reach 1 fret lower, so I go to the 11th fret, this is maybe not advisable in this particular instance. We wouldn't want to do this on minor chords just because having this on top of our chord is a really unstable sound. So I wouldn't do this. This one really only works with major second intervals, but having that there. There's it with the 5th. Let's find it on another set of strings. We'll go C here, D, same there. This is a really, really nice sound. I love the sound of this. So we get C, and then I have my 9th on top of the chord there. And if we wanted, we could even throw in the 5th there to make it full with this particular array of notes. But let's find one more. If I was to go C here, I could do the same kind of chord. Actually, they're exactly the same notes. How you want to finger that is kind of up to you. But here again, on 8 on the E string, 7 on the G string, and then 5 on the B string, I get that beautiful chord. So there's one cool trick that I've stolen from Bill Frisell from Getting Voicings. Experiment around with it and see where else you can fit in a nice major second or minor second interval into your chords. That close rub between them really gives it this interesting sound. But hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It truly helps me out more than you could know. If you want to support me or the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description. If you become a patron, you get weeks early access to videos and some other exclusive perks. You can also check out my book, Scales and Arpeggios for the Modern Guitarist, or my course on Triad Mastery on the guitar. Links to that down below as well. If you have any questions about anything that was in the video, please leave them down below. I'd be happy to get back to you and see if I can clarify anything. If you want to take a guitar lesson with me, I have a link to that in the description down below. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar. And last but not least, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you get to have some fun playing the guitar. See you in the next video.